Most facilities are no longer used, and so we are in the process of revamping that building, and we're going to put a compactor in it. And what we're going to do is some of the components from the 333 that are large components, we're going to, and they have some recoverable nickel in them. And at this point, there's a potential that the department may want to recover that nickel. And so we need to save those. Plus, that material is not permitted. It's specifically excluded from going into the onsite waste disposal facility. It would eventually, it's either going to be recycled or it's going to be disposed of off-site. And so what we're doing is that we're taking these pieces over there and we are going to compact them. Put them in a compactor and just, not a lot, but we're going to compact them so they go into standard shipping containers. Standard shipping containers like the Connex boxes you see on the rail cars going by. They'll go into containers that are similar to that, weatherproof, and they'll be stored while the department is coming to a final determination as to what their disposition is going to be.
Same kind of Connex boxes for your storm shelter?
No.
When you say Connex box, sometimes it's a used term.
Yeah, sometimes it's a term that we use like Kleenex, or Xerox, but the storm shelter is a purpose-made storm shelter.
Just want to clarify.
Right.
You use the same word and it's not the same thing. Be a carbon to carbon. No, it's not. They're different kinds.
There are numerous kinds of these things.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Okay. Oh, these were, I already talked about 343. This was the continuation of the site. Okay, let's go to the next one here. All right, a lot of activities been going on also with recycling material on the site. They're working with our partners in SODI. We had, it does two things. It gives resaleable, reusable items to SODI that they can use to support their reindustrialization efforts, so that we can make a good use of the site when we complete our efforts. And we gave them 8,200 pounds of unused R11 refrigerant that they could use. This was good. We had to do a lot of due diligence and paperwork, along with surveys and things, to make sure that the material had never been used, going back looking at receipts and things, and determined that it was never used, and so it was something that we're able to do that. And SODI makes arrangements with AGAS. I think last year, what was it, close to 1 million pounds of material that we had transferred over to SODI. We have a very aggressive goal this year to transfer materials over. Some of it is very valuable, like this R11. Some of it is something as simple as piping and steel shelving and things like that we can't use, that mainly would have a scrap value. But then there's also, because of the nature of the site with cables and wires and the motors and stuff, if we have stuff that we've never used before that were spare parts, that we can verify the origin of, and that we can use that, and there's valuable copper in that. And we're working on a bunch of copper items that we could transfer over there. Anytime we have any opportunity, when we're looking at something, is to get in touch with them to find out if they have a potential use for it. And it's a good program that we're pretty proud of. Other things that we're doing is in the local area of economic outreach. Florida BWXT, our prime contractor, our partner out there, recognized at the Pike County Chamber of Commerce. And also, it's great to be recognized and stuff, but cash helps too. And through a grant program that's administered, they're able to provide a grant recently to the city of Pike County. And there's a good picture there of some of the local officials when we were doing that.
So that would be the city, that would be the Community Investment Corporation, so that would be the city of the village?
It was donated to the Piketon Community Improvement Corporation.
Thank you.
Okay, I mean, that's what it says on there, I guess.
It's okay.
Yeah, I should have read it. But it's the economic development arm of that, and it's good. I do remember that I think a couple of meetings ago, I did a presentation where we talked about at the end of the year, we had reached over $1 million in charitable contributions to programs going to local United Way and other organizations like that over the 9 years that Florida had been here. $1 million. That's a pretty significant amount.
Now, that's the employees,
Too
right?
bad they don't pay
That's
the
employees,
workers.
yeah.
They're sick.
Oh, thank you.
All right. Coming up here is also a lot of educational outreach. We've got the First Lady of Ohio there promoting the Dolly Parton Imagination Library. Florida is supporting that locally. And then some of these other pictures here. And I will note that Dennis, you asked and you received.
Yes, I did.
Okay, right down here at Zane Trey School, judging their science fair. All right, another program that we've got that we like are public tours. You can sign up for these online. I don't know if we have anything about sign-up sheets here, but you can sign up for them online. These are the dates that they'll occur. And there, you get the information here on it. There are some requirements. You sign up. I believe you need to be a citizen and just, have a valid ID. 18 years or older and have a valid ID when you can. There'll be instructions there on it, okay? But that's a popular thing. It's interesting. I've been able to come to some of those tours when they've been having them. And coming up here next, all right, tomorrow's a big day for the Science Bowl at Shawnee State University. There are how many? 32 teams competing. And the winning team gets an all-expense-paid trip to Washington to participate in the National Science Bowl. Okay, I think it's a great program. Also, then May 7th, we have an SSB board meeting. One thing I want to mention on that is that in addition to having my update, we will also have an update from Reinhard Kinnear, who is my counterpart at DUF 6, and he's going to talk about some new activities that are coming up at DUF 6. Okay, and so we'll be able to bring that to you. So, and in addition, we have these open houses that we've got scheduled coming up in May. But you can find a full list of activities at the website that's listed at the bottom of the page there. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Any questions from the board for Ms. Bennett? Yes.
I do. I want to get back to your the D&D project timeline. This one?
Yep.
All right. Let me get one of those. I'm also an ECA member, Energy Community Alliance. You know about that one, right? I mean, Jeff, you know that committee. Because of that, I also get the Weapons Complex Exchange Monitor, and I've talked with Wayne Barber, and I'm going through, and something doesn't match up. So when I'm looking at your timeline there, if I run the red line down, I'm confused because one of my paper, the red line here, we're talking about waste placement. Would that be first waste placement we talking about right there?
Yes,
And
sir.
if I run that red line up, I'm just trying to be like a school teacher. So if I did a school teacher, tell me kids just follow that line right up. And that shows FY22, is that correct? That's what it shows.
That shows the end of FY21. That's
Yes, okay.
all of 21.
So I appreciate that, and that brings me to my point. From this, what I read from the Exchange Monitor dated March 2nd, it says something a little different than the March 2nd one. So when you're reading the March 2nd one, there's Wayne Barber's the reporter that says, hold on, we don't want to mess this up, because I want to be completely right on my information. Let's see. And that's it. Oh, here.
I did say we were a year ahead of schedule.
Well, here I'm going to tell you what this says, but this is what we're showing the community right now. And I'm looking at this, and I'm looking at page 3 of 13. Now, this is volume 31, number 9. This is dated 2/28/2020. So, sorry, made it March 2nd, so it's been up a little while. As I go to page 3, I want to clarify this. The Portsmouth site in Ohio would be strained by $2 million, 493 from 491 million. The budget continues construction of an on-site disposal facility, which would receive debris, waste, and demolition of 3 process buildings using the former uranium enrichment plant. Demolition of the first building would be at the start and end of this calendar year. That'd be this year.
Yes,
So this is 20.
so we did 20,
So.
and then this calendar says it, remember, these are fiscal years in the top, so when it shows the end of fiscal year 21, that is October of 21.
So you're
And I said
saying.
we
so
are
you're
a
saying
year
this-
ahead of schedule.
Well, here's what I'm saying, let's go ahead and make our thing say that, let's don't make it look like that to the community, because they're saying this is what they get to see. They don't get the exchange monitor, because this is.
Well, I understand that.
This is expensive magazine, I'm just saying, but I'm reading this stuff, I do pay attention, Jeff.
Yes, I
Mr. Benedict, I'm sorry, Mr. Benedict. Also, inside this one, there's a discussion of the pill payment. They're doing that right now because one of the congressmen is talking about that's been a pet peeve of mine, Simpson, because some localities receive so much pill payment, and for people out there in the audience, pill payment in lieu of taxes because they don't pay taxes like a normal entity, like say Ritchie Foods is paying since the 50s. Funding and others get so little, we get so little like Piketon or Portsmouth Plant, what do you want to call it? So this is also an exchange monitor. This is something we don't get to hear about because this is what they talk about. So I'm just wanting to say that's what's in this paper here. And as I read through the paper, and I'm not finished with this paper because it says floor BWXT. Now this is their paper, not mine, not the News Watchman, which is here. Poised to get 2 years at Portsmouth, and this is written by Wayne Barber. And as I go to the next page, it's talking about floor BWXT won an 86% rating last year. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Because I know just about 4 years ago, they got about a 26% score. It's one of the lowest in the complex of DOE. But now the score has jumped up to an 86. If that was my classroom from a 26 to an 86, I'd be getting investigated by the Ohio Department of Education. But as I read through here, the last sentence of this statement is an exchange monitor. I know you get a hold of it, you have to. Floor, which is being investigated by the Securities and Exchange Commission. This isn't Dennis Foreman. This is Securities and Exchange Commission. This is the government of the United States, SEC, for inaccurate financial filings. And I know in the one day when this went out, they lost 24% of their value. So I'm kind of confused, poised to get 2 more years to extend a contract. I think I kind of hesitate and just wait a little bit until that's done because it seems kind of like this contract is set to expire in March. So when I see someone under investigation, that gets a little scary to me being a community citizen. So most community citizens don't get to hear this kind of information, so I just want you to know it. That's the company we're dealing with. So you made a statement also. You said you had your DOE had your air modeling. That's what you said during your presentation. Well, when do we get to see it? Tom, did you know that the waste is going to go in, Mr. Schneider from EPA, maybe in November this year? Have they told you that?
We've heard different time frames, but that's certainly.
You've heard different time frames, but we just don't know. It's like throwing a dart trying to figure out time frame. Okay, so it's like when you throw a dart, see which one we hit. Let me ask you a question. So their modeling, I've been asking for this. This isn't my first time for asking for this. This is not my first time. I'm a citizen of the town right here. There's some other citizens sitting here. I know a lot of these people personally. When do we get to see the air modeling data, and when are we going to get to see the stuff that's going to go into it? Because right now, it just seems like everything's being pushed really fast, and I'm kind of concerned. We have elections coming up in November. I'm like, are you trying to push something like that? I mean, it just seems kind of strange to push. I'd rather have things take their time and do it right, and as I go through there, so the air modeling. So can we get that air modeling, Tom? Do we get that from you, or do we get that from DOE? How do we get that from the community? You're still waiting on it from DOE as well. Thank you, Mr. Schneider. Now, what about what's going to go into the WAC? Do you know exactly what's going into the WAC? What's prohibited? Because there's contaminants of concern. I don't know if anyone else on this board is concerned. There's contaminants of concern for myself, and I'd like to know as a community member what's going into this. We still don't know. It's not my first time I've asked this. It's almost like a broken record. And I feel kind of slighted when I see this presentation when I read this. I'm just reading through my things, this is my notes I'm taking. So when did you know about the November thing, Tom? Was that just recently, or is that something that's been talked about for a while?
think I said the eighties.
It just moved around a lot, okay.
Hang on, Dennis, if we can, you've thrown a lot at us here.
Well, not a lot, I'm just saying, this is the time, this is the timeline.
Let's take a second and walk through it. So first, you asked about the baseline schedule,
Yeah,
right? So this isn't just an arbitrary set of numbers that are thrown up here. This is and feel free to jump in. This is, but this is, approved by headquarters and gone through, so to change these numbers for this graphic, that's off the formal baseline, right, which is the approved, which requests funding and goes from there. Oh my goodness. So you see, you do see changes both forward and backwards off baselines, and that's not uncommon, right?
well,
Can
here's
you
what's
explain
uncommon.
maybe like what goes into, why we don't change the baseline on a quarterly basis, or?
We don't change the baseline on a regular basis, okay? What we do is we have this for monitoring. We will be changing the baseline, but it's, as I say, it's more related to contractual events when we change the baseline. So we do anticipate that we will have a new baseline published. I don't know, I don't have a date for it, but we do revisit it, but it's a very significant event to do the entire baseline for the project and redo it. So
I was just upset when I read this in Exchange Monitor, and it's different than your baseline. And there's been an issue we've been having, talking about how we're going to communicate with the public. We're having serious discussions about that, and I'm getting upset sitting as a board member here, seeing this and seeing this. Thank goodness I'm an ECA member, I'm getting to see this, because this says something different than you're telling us and telling the public that's sitting here.
I do believe that every time I presented it, I presented this baseline and I've said that we're a year ahead of schedule.
Well, what Tom Schneider said from my EPA says they've been on all kinds of days, he don't know for sure, so I'm listening to him too, and I'm hearing you, I'm getting all confused with this stuff. Now, one thing you just said though, you do have the air modeling, are you gonna release it to the public?
It's in final review.
So
Okay, how long's
with
the
that,
final
with that,
review take
Dennis,
though?
with that, so the subcommittee's coming up.
Then the next one's canceled.
Next one's
Next
canceled,
one's
right?
canceled.
So we're waiting on the ACER to roll out, that'll be in April. So we'll have the 28-18 April, ACER, we'll also do a preview of the DOE, open houses that same night, much like we did last time, kind of walk through the message that DOE's want to get across and share your thoughts on that. The following May, March, April, May, we are supposed to discuss the Pegasus, which is the GIS environmental monitoring system, as well as we have the computer flash meter reserve, so we're going to go and actually let everyone sit down at a computer and pull up Pegasus and learn how to track environmental testing and data real time. June, we're supposed to do co-located monitors, which is the kind of the first rollout of the air sampling and how that's working in conjunction with EPA and DOE.
I've got a question for Mr. Schneider then, because there's a thing on EPA, we had to go for Rumpke to extend their dump, which is, I don't know, chicken bones and diapers over here. So we had to go through this whole process, Mr. Schneider, correct? So when is the process for the community going to have this, for what we're going to know, what's going to be in there, we can have public comment about what we're willing to accept, what's going in here, because we don't even know right now, we haven't had a public meeting about what's going in, the community's sitting there, we don't know the air modeling, we don't know what's going to go in, what's not going to go in for sure, because there's in final review, I take my time serious. I come to these meetings, and I have a great record of coming here, attendance record. Last time I didn't come, I won a national trip to Mexico, and if it wouldn't have been a blizzard, I wouldn't have missed that one, but I do take my time seriously. And when I read these things, I get upset. All I hear is final review, we'll get back to it, I'll answer you later. I don't get answered back very often. Their modeling is something that, if you know what you're doing, and you're gonna go as soon as November, and we're talking this is March, then you should have your act together and have that information to the public so we know, because we don't know what kind of fusion of dust is gonna come off that, we're not for sure. So I'm upset being a citizen, not just a board member, I'm also an elected official that gets called all the time. People are on me all the time. We just published some people that interviewed me from the National Education Association. I get called Dennis Brockman and made fun of all the time, but I'm telling you what, maybe it's because I'm taking this serious. So when you put a timeline up here, all you gotta do is take a little pull, pull it over and put 2020. That's pushing it with me, and I just feel like it's being dishonest. With having that for the public, they had no idea unless I brought this up. I had no idea. When you have a timeline, they're saying, okay, it's still this time. So I would like to know when we're going to have a public meeting, not an information session. Those aren't well attended anyhow. You asked me before, as DOE people, how they want to communicate with the public. It's a public comment period, just like I had to for chicken bones and diapers for Rumpke. Also, I read in the newspaper today. Mr. Lucas, in the newspaper today. There's an empty, but there's another thing right now.
Do you have a question for Jeff?
I have a Jeff. Yeah, Jeff, here it is. I'm glad he said it because he's a newspaper guy. I read in the newspaper today. There's another permit, MPDES permit. What's this about?
It's a permit associated with the discharges and the outfalls at the site.
Okay.
And it is up for renewal. These are renewed on a regular basis. In addition, it's being modified to include the discharges from the water treatment systems that we're installing.
No
And
public
it's
input.
with the Ohio EPA, and they'll be running the meetings and things like that, so I'll defer any other questions related to that.
So, Mr. Schneider, since you deferred to you, Mr. Schneider, is that something we get to talk to there, or is that just something in another information session? Or is this something that the public can have a comment that goes in and then the EPA answers back? Because they didn't answer me back. Is this the same kind of process?
I believe this permit modification is the right
Has a public hearing because of the modification. Thank you, Mr. Schneider, I appreciate it. So it had a public hearing.
Justin would know for sure.
But if they had a public hearing, though, public hearing means the public gets to speak, and then they have to answer the questions of the public. And it has a stenographer, they go over and take everything down.
If that's what it is, yes.
Okay, I understand, but that's what it is. Okay. Because I'm just concerned, Mr. Benninger, I'm just getting a little upset when I see these things here. And back to the issue, what about Florida? Do you have concerns, your DOE, do you have concerns with the company that's being investigated by the SEC?
I have no comment on it.
You have no comment. But I'm asking as a person sitting here, it's kind of frightening.
Bob, do you have questions?
Yeah. Well, I don't have a question. I'd just like to make a comment on the Ford situation. From what I've read, Ford is a multinational diverse corporation. This is not all they do. In fact, they were considering at one point selling off this division that does the cleanup, but they decided not to. So this, whatever financially they're being investigated for, doesn't mean it's part of this cleanup system.
Do you know? Do you know?
Do you?
Well, that's what I'm asking you. You can't make a statement that says it's not part of this. I'm not saying it's
I
part of
said
this,
it
but
doesn't mean it's part of this.
I think it's been reported in the like Department of Defense.
it'd be the finals, yes. But as a person sitting here on the board that pays attention to things that go from like in the 20s to the lowest complex score to the highest, and sometimes the fee structures get changed in the middle of contracts, I get kind of confused. So there's some issues here that are very serious. But it doesn't matter to me whether it's this cell or not. If you're a company that can't control your business and you're getting investigated by the SEC, multi-billion or not, that's a little pause to me. If the government's serious enough to do it, this is not Dennis Foreman, this is the SEC, Mr. Barry. This isn't you or me, this isn't anyone here. Securities Exchange Commission is going over these people for fines. That's, to me, it's serious. It needs a serious pause. You're going to give them a sole contract here, so I'm kind of nervous. And
Are there questions from anyone else on the board at this point?
I have one more though, since he's here. We can ask one more for him? Okay, that's one, that's okay. I brought this in case because I'm a teacher. And I'm gonna ask you this question, it's a serious question, because this community right now, how many states do people come from at this facility? Probably about 10?
I don't know.
Well, you're from Massachusetts, and sometimes you go home. We have people, I remember Jill used to come in here, she's from the state of Washington. We have people from Pennsylvania. Last time I was in this parking lot, there's probably 6 different states and things. What I'm saying is, this company here is a major company, a major, like you said, back to your statement, it's a major multi-billion-dollar corporation, whatever. There's a lot of people who work at this facility that don't live here that come and go. My question to you, I have to do this right now as a school. I don't know if you are at your school, Ms. Bennett, but right now we are having discussions about the coronavirus, whether people want to believe it or not. When you got Governor DeWine, once again, this is not Dennis Foreman. This is Governor DeWine saying they're going to shut down no, that's not me. So it's not a political thing anymore. I don't know if there's something being hidden from the people, but I'm like, Well, I've got my kit here. Do you have enough testing? Do you have testing information for the employees? We have workers there that need to be protected. Because some of those employees are my neighbors, like there's one right here at the end of the table, there's Mr. Crabtree. So do you have a plan? Have you been working on a coronavirus plan? Just because the whole United States seems to, it seems like they're even going to put March Madness or the kids just play and you film it and no one in the audience. This is things that are being talked about right now. So the coronavirus, what's your plans for that? Because what I'm saying is with community, you bring people, this place brings people from all over the United States to this facility. They go out and have lunch. They go out and go to places, that's great. Well, what about testing with them? That's what I'm asking about the coronavirus.
I'm waiting for him to stop.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. It's okay, Jeff, go ahead.
Okay, yes, the Department of Energy has we have a couple of things. One of which is a continuity of operations plan and program, okay, that's in place, that we have copies of that we've been reviewing. In addition, there is a pandemic policy that the department has, FBP has, and PMA, our other subcontractor.
Are those shared with Mr. Brewster there, our health commissioner? You need to have discussions. Have you met with him yet? If not, you need to. I'm just saying this here. I see the health commissioner.
We have our health group that's on site that is a part of it.
Yeah, but it's part of my community, and we brag about having calls where we work back and forth. You have to brag about the fire department. We all work together here. There's our health commissioner. We need to work with him too, because people come into our hotel in Piketon. I live in Piketon. That parking lot is completely full Monday through Thursday. Trucks from everywhere and cars from all over the United States of America. They're going in the same grocery stores I am. I'm not trying to freak everyone out, but I do think. I'm a logical person. I am a scientist and I do think. And you've got to think out the scenario. So if something did happen, you need to be a part being DOE, because you have the employees. And what I mean by a part is work with the health commissioner and work this out to make sure if something does happen, we want to communicate and not hide. That's what the Chinese do. They hide information. We in the United States are not supposed to, because with America, the freedom, we're supposed to be the people who helps everybody. So I've got all this stuff. I brought mine. I know most of the stuff. You go to your hardware store right now and try to get a set of these. They don't have them. They're wiped out. So what I'm trying to say is right now, I'd like to know if there's an issue we can work out. Let me ask you one last thing and I'll leave you on. Over here, the JPEG. The JPEG, do you have the generator put in yet? I'm concerned about the generation of power, because last time we had this, that's probably about this third or fourth time. Do we have a generator put in for the JPEG yet? No. We need one of those, because there's several times we just had it happen again. We had these windstorms that knocks out the electricity. We need a generator at the JPEG, because JPEG could also serve as a place if we had a pandemic in Southern Ohio. We don't have access that big cities do, and you guys are a team player. And you're a big team player, so I appreciate something. And I'd like, may I request myself as a board member and elected official, is for you to meet with the commissioner. Let's get something worked out. Hey, nice to see you, Mr. Burke. Glad you're here.
All right. Any other questions? Do you have questions?
I was just, and this might not be the time, it needs to report, is there a reason why it was late getting to us? I mean, I just don't know if there was, are you doing more testing or?
It's going through its review cycle.
It's just going?
It's a long review cycle.
Okay, I just didn't know if there was more you need to do it or something.
Now, our last meeting, was this be a 2-year ACE or a 1-year, like we talked about sometimes?
1-year ACE.
It's going to be the one, I mean, but it's going to be.
2018.
So 2018?
Yes.
And going forward, we talked about maybe getting information faster.
We did talk about it, we're still working on that.
Okay. So
So
that,
we-
I don't have anything to share with you.
okay. I just
As we
wanted-
roll forward, Dennis, and we look at the Pegasus GIS, that's one of the questions we want to talk to you guys about.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
And so not put the cart in front of the horse, but it's.
We need to answer
it
some
takes
questions
time.
too.
All right, thanks, sir. Well done. All right. Greg Simonson, clerk coordinator comments?
Science Bowl tomorrow starts at, registration starts at 7:45, any volunteers. The kids will start arriving then. First competition will roll out at approximately 9 o'clock. And we'll do the round robin in the morning, we'll have lunch, and then the single elimination starts after that. I believe that we should be wrapped up by about 5:30, my guess, sometimes a little earlier. But it'll be a long day, but a good day, and so thanks in advance for everybody that's going to be able to make it down and help us, and that's it.
Yeah, Karen.
I'd just like to know if Portsmouth High School is involved in this. We had a time with them, and they promised that they would contribute to send some kids down there.
I didn't look at the final roster, Carol, I have to admit.
Really?
I'll tell you after tomorrow. I'm sorry about that, I didn't look at the final roster, I was looking at the number of teams, I want to make sure we got the 32 to have nice even brackets.
Yeah.
So if we start betting, we can make it easy.
I just wondered if I should ask them,
I did see it.
Mr. Duty or not.
Okay, I don't know,
Of 32, there's 18 different schools.
18 different schools, some
Wow.
schools have 2, so.
Most of
Yeah.
So can we fill out our bracket tonight?
Yeah.
Science bowl, gambling pool going on. All
You
right.
guys live stream that? Or probably not with kids? Not type series. I know, like in the know, you know, the kids sign up, if you ever want to do that in the future. You remember in the know, older people in this room, you remember, we're getting old. Where they have the quiz bowling, and my kids, the same Trace, have competed in that as well. They put them on TV, and it means a lot to the kids, so that might be an option too.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, we're gonna slide over to liaison. Sean, anything from you? Tom? Sean? Any questions for our fine folks from the state of Ohio?
So, no, how do we do about this? Probably mean, do we have to petition you or something like that, or look like this whack and air modeling? Because I'm asking you, if you get it before they get it to us, how do we do that? I'm just a basic citizen trying to learn something new about this air modeling, because it's not the first one I've asked.
The day it comes to us, it's public record.
So let me ask you a question. So with that modeling, if you get it, you have to have time to review it, correct?
So it's public record.
So you don't get to review it. So if they give it to you, in theory, could they start dumping waste in it the next day?
Oh, no.
Thank you, that's what I
We
wanted.
already do it.
Okay, but once you get it, how long do you think a review like that takes, Mr. Schneider?
I don't know, it depends on that.
But once you get it, it's public, we can still see it as the public too. So while you're reviewing it, we can see it as well. So as soon as you get that, you know my email, because I've talked to you many times through email and here. I like to get that. As soon as you get it, as soon as it hits your, you just
Send me
forward
a-
it.
And
I will send you one as we said.
We'll send it to Sean.
John, we'll send him a message, we'll get it to Sean. So 2 button pushes.
We have blank people.
Thank you, Sean.
I like how you said that. Send me a message. Sean today. That is good leadership right
Just
there.
making sure the right
There's
person
no-
gets
That is
it.
outstanding.
Right, good.
All right, so we have 7 board members here. That gives us enough members to look at the recommendation that is under tab 4 in your packets. It is recommendation 20-02. It's a Portsmouth Environmental Management SSAB recommendation. The DOE take measures to fully communicate the 2018 Portsmouth Annual Site Environmental Report. Bob, I'll ask you to read this recommendation into the record for us, but before we get going, just as a point of reference, as this fits into the work plan of the board, and I know we've talked about it, but I want all folks here to understand, this recommendation is intended to be focused solely on the 2018 ASA reports, the Annual Site Environmental Report. It is the collection of environmental monitoring data that is collected through the calendar year 2018, right? We are going to continue to work with DOE on how to communicate environmental monitoring data for the years 2019, 2020, and forward. And those will come in a series of additional recommendations. So this is somewhat tighter and a little more scripted than some of the others because it is intended to be for a document that, quite honestly, we all know what's already in it at this point because of what's happened in the community. So that's just to put this in context of where we are. All right, so Bob, since you helped initially craft this, we're going to let you read the recommendation portion. We'll have a discussion from the board. If the board chooses to go forward with this recommendation, we'll open it up to public comment and allow you to comment on this particular recommendation. We'll still have full public comment at the end of the meeting. And then if the board chooses, we'll vote it takes. It is 2/3 of the board members here, so that would be 5 board members to pass this recommendation. So, Bob, if you'll read this in for us.
The recommendation, the Ports SSAB recommends DOE communicate with the public in a simple manner that will provide highlights of the report with information on how to access the ACER and contact information for any questions or concerns they may have. An update of information on environmental monitoring on the EPA.gov website with accessible links as data becomes available. A portion of the Ports SSAB public meetings be dedicated to ACER updates. Consideration of a station at the Science Alliance to encourage students about the information in the ACER. We would like to thank the DOE for its interaction with the Ports SSAB, and we look forward to providing valuable information to the department on this topic and other items of interest as the D&D project progresses.
All right, so before we roll forward, Cindy, in the first bullet, the second line, we have the word accessible. It should be accessible, ACC. So we'll make that grammatical change. That effect. Spell check. It's a real word. So, all right. Thoughts and comments from the board on this recommendation?
I'm ready to go.
Okay. Anyone else?
So it feels really strange that we have to make a recommendation and tell DOE it's okay to send a mailer out. They can do that themselves. Their management, and I'm just saying, I'm reading this, now here's what I don't like. I don't like this. Don't tell me the public with a simple mailer. That's insulting to me. I don't like that. And if we're going to do something here, since we didn't read the first part of the background why we're doing this, is the spring of 2019 community concerns arose following the distribution of the 2017. I'm going to read this because it deserves to be read. Distribution of the 2017 Portsmouth Annual Site Environmental Report called the ACER. So if you hear the word ACER, that's what it is Annual Site Environmental Report. So they like to use a lot of terms, and a lot of people do. So it indicated transuranic contaminants were detected in the air monitor adjacent to Zom's Corner Middle School. Additional information followed that another transuranic element was discovered in 2018 monitoring, which preceded the Souda Valley School District closing Zom's Corner Middle School in May of 2019. We're coming on almost to about a year. The U.S. Department of Energy, which they call the DOE, is sponsoring an independent assessment of the area, which they're still doing that. So some people here are thinking, is there anything going on? It's still going on. It just takes a long time. The assessment of the area near the site to determine what, if any, contamination from Portsmouth site exists, off-site, and to what extent. Since this issue surfaced, questions and concerns arose about the length of time. Length of time the information was known. Length of time the information was known until it was reported more than a year later in the ACER. The one was about 2 years. So that's kind of a misnomer too. DOE has explained the effort to compile the monitoring data, develop the report, print the report, and distribute the report is extensive and time-consuming for them. That's what time-consuming. For them, so time-consuming. Although that is understandable, there should be a mutual agreement that the public should be informed as quickly as possible. Kind of like when I ask for air modeling data. They keep reviewing it, so quickly as possible, and thoroughly as possible in environmental monitoring data. It is, once it is known. So that's what we're working on right now. The ACER is being a little slow, so we're not having my next meeting. For that reason, the Ports Environmental Management people, SSAB, that's us, offers the following recommendation, which is more focused on the 2018 ACER and future ACERs, as opposed to the broader aspect of communication laid out in Ports SSAB Recommendation 20-01. So for that, to let you know, me, as I sat here on this board, I wrote a recommendation to open the record decision to have a serious discussion. What is going to be put into the landfill for people to feel more comfortable, not a simple mailer to my people. And let me ask you one question, Mr. Schneider. So the people out here understand neptunium and americium. Where does that come from? I mean, how do you get that? How does that made? Or is that a byproduct of enriching uranium? Is that a byproduct of enriching uranium, neptunium, and americium? Do you know?
No, it's a byproduct.
Oh, so byproduct of fission. So, does someone do that in this location close to us? Or used to do that in this location close to us? Who would done the fission? And how did fission material end up in pipe then?
Dennis, I don't think
I'm
Tom
confused.
is on trial here. So,
No, Tom's not on trial. I'm just trying to ask Tom about the
no,
neptunium.
but you're trying to bait him into answering something that's not
Oh,
fair.
no, don't say the word debate. I'm not trying to debate nothing. I'm trying to learn. If I can't ask a question, I don't want to be on the board. I can't ask a question there. So I'm going through
Okay,
this.
so then
And we didn't read the
ask
first
your
one.
question and allow him to answer it.
So,
Two ways it's produced.
thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Nuclear reactor and nuclear detonation.
So nuclear reactor. Do we have a nuclear reactor here? Not where. So do we have material that come from nuclear reactors that went through the process?
I would defer to DOE on that, but I believe so.
You believe so? DOE. Since you're here, Mr. Bettinger, I'm just saying, I'm just trying to figure it out.
No. What does that have to do with this recommendation?
Well, I'm just trying to figure out
And
the
it does-
interesting and neptunium in the very beginning. That's
Okay,
what
but
I'm
that
telling
doesn't-
people.
What we're looking at is what's in this recommendation.
Okay, I'm confused, Jerry, for a recommendation. I feel kind of concerned that we're making a recommendation to let DOE or tell them to send out a flyer. It seems kind of ridiculous. Well, they just make a website up and flyers are a waste of money. Put it in the newspapers, newspaper man right here, put it in the front page of the newspaper, everyone can see it.
All right, so Dennis obviously is against the flyer. I'm looking to the rest of the board for your thoughts on this recommendation. Yes.
Personally, I think this recommendation is a step forward
Okay.
to try to get DOE to communicate better with the
Okay, thank you, Jody. Others?
The simple fire, as I read that, I make an assumption that, if there's something that's picked up in the air monitor, then that is listed, and people around are notified much quicker than a year and a half. But I wanna ask to make sure my assumption isn't, I'm seeing one thing or reading one thing, and DOE or someone else thinks it means something else. So I just, is the simple flyer just saying, okay, if we detect something, we're gonna send out, or am I?
Okay,
oversimplifying?
that's a really good question, because what we write here on how Greg and Jeff read this recommendation is going to affect how we get a response back and where they go. So I'm going to ask you, when you read, and we talked about everything from the last committee on sending out a mailer that was simple and easy to follow, do you understand what the board means when they say that? That's a good question, Todd.
So a simple mailer just is not to mean, not to insinuate that it's simple, it was to boil down, and not to get into a lot of detail because the mailer by its own nature is kind of small. The ACE report itself is much more comprehensive. And so as we go forward, what we want to do is to understand what would be helpful to the public to be able to take the information that we have and not wait for the ACE report, but to be able to make it available much quicker. The format that takes, we want to talk about that going forward, because what we don't want to do is run into a situation where it just looks bad when you're saying 2017 and you're sitting here in 2019 like last year. So we're trying to address that. It's going to be a multi-step process to get there. So in my mind, if there was an issue that came out, we'd be able to have some mechanism. Maybe we could take the mailer out of this, but the idea was that we would alert earlier, even if we don't have a comprehensive report, and be able to say, well, there was a trace amount of neptunium, and and give you some specifics, and then the full report's going to come, but that way it doesn't look like it's taken 2 years to get out. That's how I want to be able to respond to that. That's the idea, and how we want to help the board go forward and help us communicate that. That's the idea, that's the goal.
And that's the way I read it, getting out in front of an issue, like when there's neptunium or americium.
And so as you see with people talk about the independent assessment taking a while, and the fact is, when you start getting information, even in the best case scenario, you get, you take your field work, you take it, you do all the work it takes to get it to the lab, you get your numbers back, you gotta go through verification. It is months before you really have information, you feel that it'll be solid, as long as it's not a huge problem. And that's what I'm working with. If it's a huge problem, it's a bigger story. Talking about if you run into a trace amount, well below regulatory limits, we need to be able to go through and verify and make sure that we're comfortable, that we can stand behind what we're giving you, but we don't have to wait for other information to come in to have a comprehensive report that goes through, multiple levels of review that takes so long. So it's trying to get it out quicker. So in the best case scenario, it might be a few months behind, but it won't be 2 years.
And Greg, I think, I'll speak for myself, I won't put my opinions on someone else, but for me, as a community member and a school person, getting that information, like when there's that much of a lag, it makes it appear that, okay, someone's covering something up and this is a real bad thing, where information on the front end, it might not be true, but at least we know what it is, and it's not this in a report that it doesn't feel as though there's a cover-up. It's owning it and saying, yes, we detected this. And I wanted to ask the question for me because it was important. I know there's background and all of these other things, but when there's a detection, I think it's important too for the Department of Energy to say, hey, we detected this. And just like you said, let's trace amounts and, it is what it is. It's in the air monitoring filter. And just communicating that and saying, this is what we found, and it's not 2 years later.
There have been a lot of lessons that will be able to be applied going forward. Some of them won't be able to happen as quickly as we'd like. Sure. But as you all know, it wasn't much longer that the 2017 report was out that we were able to say in 2018 it wasn't americium. It was at this level. And so that's an example of, that didn't take 2 years to get the report, to get the data, but it still took that long to get the report because we've gone through reviews, literally it takes a long time because there's so many different, all the different areas that you look at, water, air, soils, vegetation, animals, all the different areas are funneling into one report. But when there's an issue, we were able to say in May of last year, everything americium showed up in, I think it was October, I can't remember the month. And so that was much better. It still wasn't as good as we'd like. But nonetheless, going forward, if we can, I think we'll be able to progress and this whole thing will get better so that eventually the lessons that will be learned will be, you don't wait, you just come out, even if it's to people that are familiar with it and work with it every day. You have to realize that most people don't. Right. We found out last year that most people haven't read the ACERs. Even though they go out, they sit on the shelf. And so that's not a criticism of people, but I think there's generally been a level of just acceptance or trust that if there was a problem, we would let you know. And what is a problem is defined differently by everybody. And so all these things going forward, we're going to do better. Not perfect yet, but we want to make improvements. And I think this is the second recommendation that will help us get down the road to where we can have better and more comprehensive and quicker dialogue.
As close to real time as.
So,
In our world, yes. It won't be the next day, but it'll be a few months old is the oldest data that we would be able to roll out. If it's semi-annual, quarterly, whatever it is, we'll be able to do that in context if possible. We have different forms we can do that in, but we don't want to have it so that it makes it look like we've been sitting on our hiding.
And I in talking to a lot of folks, and myself included, when I got the ACER, I didn't bring it cover to cover. I'll own my own delinquencies, I guess. But I think as close to real time as possible, it makes the appearance better. And it doesn't seem like, okay, we shove it in here, maybe people won't know or people won't read it and find out. And I'm not saying that was the intent. I'm just saying there will.
But this takes away that whole thought.
Yes.
If you roll it out, as you get data, even if it's not in a comprehensive, and to try to help people understand what's there, you're better off. We know that. And I think just, again, this is part of going forward and doing better, and it's lessons learned. I don't know how else to say it, but that's the intent of our discussion tonight, going forward. And that's what we want to do, be able to do it in a way that we can present information quicker and then eliminate some of this.
What's the fear of the unknown? When people ask me what's Neptunium, I can Google it. That's,
I get it. Yep.
With Dr. Burke, with that, we had a subcommittee about this. One of the things I brought up is a website. Now, our website, it's for the Ports SSAB, it sucks. It used to be amazing. Used to be, you could type in Ports SSAB and find every recommendation. So with this recommendation being in real time, if we had a recommendation, say this passed or didn't pass, it would be popped up tomorrow on the Ports SSAB website. The videos they're taking of us right now, him and his wife are taking the videos of us, you can find them there. There's links to them. So part of the access problem I have with DOE myself is getting this faster stuff. We used to have a website, I can go in and research every recommendations passed by this board. So when I look at this here, and I'm like, we're telling them to send out a flyer. Well, how about make the website a little better, and we can have that as our main access to go to. If you want to know about people's lives, most people sitting in this room are all going to Facebook. At our age group, the kids are going to their things. But if they want to know what's really going on that plant site, the Ports SSAB, if we're going to have a real purpose setting here, if we had a website, and it was there and it's put up all the time. And I like the discussion you two had back and forth. I wrote this word, trace amounts. So any trace amount. If you're detecting it, like you said, and I heard the word trace out of Mr. Simmons' mouth, any trace, because when we get our water, Mr. Schneider, I don't know if you do water, but Mr. Schneider, we get our water report, the village, we had to put out, no matter how much we find of anything, we had to tell the people that's drinking the water what's in the water. So I like when you said trace amounts. I'm going to keep you guys to that. You like that too?
I do.
Because, like you said, whatever it is that's in there, you found it. And we're not saying, it might not be you.
And just as a follow-up to that, Dennis, trace amounts are reported in the exit, correct?
Yeah. So
Everything that.
the actual numbers are
Okay.
reported. I guess one of the things, Dennis, that would be helpful going forward is how do we communicate that and not sound like we're talking down or make it offensive in some way? In other words, when you do your water, you'll have, I think you have plots on a graph, and then you'll have limits and things. And so it's like you showed in relation to that. I mean, so anything that would be help, that we would find, that we could have help communicating it, that wouldn't be offensive, would be a help too, because you don't want to come across as being like oversimplifying and insulting someone, but by the same token, if you don't, and you make it hard, they can't read it, and it's got to be a fine line there that we get to, so we're trying to find that.
And again, just listening and trying to process, I think we can do both. I mean, I think there's an opportunity for the website, but there's also an opportunity to send a mailer and say, maybe report of greater detail on the website, where in the mailer you say, hey, we found trace amounts, the data we have will be listed on the website, and kind of do both. It's just a suggestion.
And if I might interject, I'm thinking that that's what part of this is also saying. If you go to where it says an updating of information, will be on the ppo.gov website with other links to be able to reach out to various other things. So I think this recommendation is sort of covering step by step on everything. We had talked about, because in one of our sessions we had talked about being able to communicate via this internet type of thing, because everybody can't make it, say, to this place, and go upstairs and look at the paperwork. But having the website, most everybody can do it from their own home. So they can keep up on it as much as they possibly want.
And something we got to watch, though, we got to be careful about with flyers this time of year. This is the most debated, probably presidential race that's probably ever been in our history. We just had a multi-billionaire, he just dropped out, but my gosh, I'm still getting things in my mailbox from Bloomberg. Our mailboxes are gonna be polluted, and it's gonna be the same color. People will take those flyers, they get tossed in the Piketon post office before it gets to their mail. It's completely full of flyers, so be careful with how much money you spend on flyers.
Kara?
I'd like to make a motion
Yes, ma'am?
that we change accessible to accessible.
Yes, ma'am, we can do that. You don't even need a motion. That was just a typo on our part.
Okay, and then I'd like to make a motion that we bring it up for vote.
All right.
I'd like to second it.
All right, so Lisa's brought it up for a second. Is there any further discussion from the board on this? All right, so we are going to open this up for public comment. We're going to set aside 1 minute for you to comment specifically on this recommendation. I need you to really focus on this particular recommendation. We will have a full open comment period shortly. Julie will bring the microphone around, and if you'll introduce yourself, and then we'll give you a minute to state your comments on this recommendation before we take the vote. All right, so if you'd like to provide comment. Ms. Vina, how are you, ma'am?
I'm here. Hi, this is Vina Colley, President of Portsmouth Piketon Residents for Environmental Safety and Security and co-chair of National Nuclear Workers for Justice. And I'm really concerned about the ACER report, and I can't remember which report, it's the 17th or 18th, I think you probably know. But we have a monitor out in Otway that's sitting out there that had amnesia 14 miles from the school, and nothing has been done about it. The 3 schools that are in the pathway of this monitor has not even been checked or even been told that they're in the pathway of this ACER monitor. So I'm concerned. I mean, took a long time just on the school over here, but Anna White she knew about that monitor out at Otway, and basically she got fired because she was trying to do some help for the Python community. And so I'm really concerned that we're letting let this ACER thing go, and we're not paying attention to the off-site contamination. And since the EPA doesn't know,
About 10 seconds.
since the EPA doesn't know, we have had reprocessing of reactor fuel since 1953. This lady over here just gave me a document here that shows that your own Bakel Jacobs says that you've had it since 1955, but I have records for 1953. So we've been reprocessing reactor fuel with all these transuranic daughters in them.
Thank you, Ms. Vina. Oh, hi, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. My name is Jill Blanton, and I'm a nurse, but I live approximately 1 mile from the school, 3 miles from here, what I would call downwind. I am concerned that, the school closed and they did detect trace amounts. And my question is, who monitors the air monitors? I feel like it's kind of subleased, like you're monitoring them yourself. And the public, it went out that there was a minor miscalculation in the report, in the numbers, so like, who's to say that's not gonna happen again? And I'm also wondering, this was detected in 2017, was it detected in 2016? And if there was no trace amounts in 2016, then where did this all of a sudden, blow up into the air in 2017 to where, it wasn't present before? And I'm really concerned if there is a detection of a large amount, what is the plan to notify the public of that? I'm like, 3 miles away from here. I'm sorry.
Don't let Julie boss you
You know what I mean?
You're fine. You're fine.
So it concerns me, what if you do find something that's more serious and, if that is a public threat, do we have a plan for that? How long is that gonna take? Am I gonna be breathing this contaminant for 2 months? Is it gonna be, everywhere?
Okay, so, real quick, your time is up, and you covered a lot of questions, and I want to make sure we give you answers. Are you able to stick around for just a couple minutes after the meeting? And I can put the right people with you to.
Sure.
I want to make sure you're comfortable with it, okay?
Yeah,
But
thank you.
Greg was
I appreciate
leaning
that.
over to me, and your 10-second answer was, there is a
We
plan.
have emergency, if something's a real issue, we have emergency procedures and plans in place. We drill that We do mutual aid with off-site fire departments and squads with Pike County and the townships. So we have plans for that. We can go into a little more detail afterward, but just to be able to address, yes, there are plans in place if there's an issue that's of a true concern and of an immediate nature. We have a process and a plan in place where we activate. We'll talk about that, but yes, just a short answer.
Was there, these trace amounts in 2016? Or did these just pop up for some reason? Like, where did the trace amounts come from? If they wasn't there in 2010 and 2011, was it because there was a miscalculation during all those years? But that's just something that me, as a resident that lives 3 miles, and like, I feel it's downwind. I feel like Eastern needs to be checked. My kids, went there their entire life. I just feel like, where did it come from if it wasn't there in 2016? And if it was, why don't we know that?
Stick around with this for just a few minutes, we'll take all the time in the world.
Sure. We're all interested in that, by the way.
Yeah, but this is I understand, this is a comment session, not a question. So, all right, let's take some of Ms. Joni, please.
Thank you for remembering my name.
Yes, ma'am.
Joni Fearing, Portsmouth. My dad died with, now we believe, 5 cancers from working at the plant from 54 to 64. So my questions are similar to theirs, my comments and questions. This is not a new development. How long has this stuff been floating around? Is this from the 50s and 60s, from releases that were there while this was going on? Is this from the decontamination and decommissioning too, also, both of them, or one of those? So this is not an experiment. This is not a future thing. This is a done thing. This is a past thing. This is already out there. So to have a plan for the future, you've got to back up here and figure out what to do about what's already out in the environment, in the schools. We closed a school, for God's sake. A school. Those kids were exposed for how long? Do we even know? Do we know how much time these people have been exposed to? If my dad was working there from 54 to 64 and he died with 5 different cancers, granted he was actually doing the work, but that stuff was going through there. These spent fuel rods that everybody denied, which is where this is coming from, as we just heard. So engaging students about information? What is that about? This is not an experiment. Is Piketon going to become a love canal? Is that going to be what's going to need to be done? Is that the recommendation for the future? Because it's not going to be livable. If this isn't cleaned up and something decided about how this is going to be affecting all of these people, then it's not livable. I'm sorry, but sending out a mailer, hey, we found some more. What are you doing about what's already there? I don't understand this way of thinking at all.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Berry. We'll have an additional public comment at the end of the night. All right, so anyone else on this recommendation? Yes, sir, how are you?
Yes, my name is Bob Tumbleson, Robert Tumbleson. I live a mile east of the school, and it's a simple question. I took high school science 45 years ago. Are you going to make the flyer simple enough for someone who took high school science 45 years ago to understand it?
He's not just said yes. That's the intent, is to make it as user-friendly as possible.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. All right, sliding down the road. Hey, Lee, how are you, sir?
Lee Blackburn, former board member. First, I'd like to begin by saying it's sad that you have to tell DOE to do their own job, but that's apparently what you're doing. A simple mailer really raises the question of who does it go to, who gets it, how do you determine that? Also, you mentioned pppo.gov. I'll tell you, I looked at it a couple weeks ago and it was at least 6 months behind. So somebody needs to keep that up to date. And I'd ask the board, does anybody even know whose responsibility is to keep pppo.gov up to date? Because I've looked for information out there on previous meetings and it's just not out there. Thank you.
Excellent.
Diana Capel.
I have just been a nosy neighbor for a long time. I would like to recommend that you put a brief statement of the source of transuranics and fission products. Mr. Schneider eloquently said it's from inside a nuclear reactor when they're turned on, and it's from atomic bombs, or nuclear bombs, more accurately. But put that information in there. Tell people these are artificially created, man-made products. And they have been at this site for a very long time. The report I have says 1955, but I think it would clear the fog with people to just explain to them, where did transuranics come from? What are transuranics? Just tell them. Doesn't do any good not to tell them. They're going to find out anyway, and then they're going to be madder than heck because you didn't tell them. Anyway, that's my suggestion.
Thank you, ma'am. Are there others that have, we'll just pass on them? Making it a lot easier.
Pat Murata, I volunteer with the Sierra Club and work with the Nuclear Free Campaign. It's all in the record, if you read the records, that this facility brought in what it is high-level radioactive waste. They brought that in here, and it's unbelievable that anyone could do anything that ignorant, but they brought it in here and they ran it through the entire process building in order to extract uranium and whatever else they wanted out of the enrichment process. So the high-level radioactive waste is in those cylinders. It's all through all these buildings. It's worsely condensed in the pipes, which should never go into that landfill, because we're in an area where there's a lot of rainfall, and so even if it's hundreds of years later, that's going to go into the aquifer eventually, whatever gets put in here. There certainly is no good place for it. But the Department of Energy needs to admit that they did this. And this cleanup process is putting dust and putting some of that back into the atmosphere, which means that the cleanup process really needs to be probably much better controlled so that dust isn't disturbed so much during this cleanup process. And then he talked about allowable limits. Allowable limits, they're arbitrary, and every last bit of this stuff is dangerous. And then there's the location of the monitors. They generally all over the country, the Department of Energy puts them in places where there's going to be less contamination. So that's an issue. And so we really need real-time monitoring to be safe. For the public to be safe needs real-time monitoring. That's my comment. Thank you.
Well, it's good to be home, and I'll be on travel in May, so I won't see anybody until the summer in the school. But anyway, I want to just briefly direct comments to Mr. Schneider and also to Dr. Burkett. I'm the former chief scientist at the site, and I've been tending these vineyards now for almost 41 years. And the thing is, if I were to have 2 words for both of you, it's ask me. And I'll give you cards later so that you can ask me. Okay, because comments that Mr. Schneider made are actually factually incorrect. And I don't know if this is the right time or later on.
I'll do it later on.
Okay, then I'll hand it right back to you.
Are there, thank you. Hey, it's good to have you here. Oh, we have.
Matt Brewster, Pike County Health Department Health Commissioner. I just want to make a clarification of how the americium hit 2018 was released to the public, because it wasn't really from DOE. We had the April 27th meeting, several of you were there. We asked the DOE representation, I won't mention the name, you can go back and watch the video. Was Neptunium detected in 2018 in the ACER report? Because they stated we have the ACER data, the report's not done. They said no Neptunium. They didn't mention anything else. Okay, fast forward, we had a meeting with Ann White, who was more than helpful, and I think she was an asset for our community that sadly is no longer around in that position. So we were in a meeting May 14th, and we asked her, again, we knew the Acer baby was there. We said, was anything detected? Because we asked the wrong question to DOE on April 27th. We said that to him. So we said, was anything detected? She said, yes, americium was detected at the school. It was also detected in Otway. So it wasn't DOE being ahead of the game, at least at that point. I know this recommendation is to get to that point, which I think is great. But at that time, the americium came from a press release from the health department letting everyone know what Ann White from DOE told us.
Thank you, Matt. Good idea. Any other comments on this recommendation?
Thank you.
All right, we're back to the board.
By my order, I'd like to make a motion to read.
I have a question first before we do that.
There's 3 schools.
The young lady back here, I've known her for years through the community. Yeah, I've known you for years through the community. She did bring up some good things about miscalculations, and she was correct. That's why a lot of people are ticked off, you know, they don't do their math right, and now they're getting investigated by the SEC for not doing their math right again. EPA, a long time ago, would like to be talked to by the EPA too. Sorry, Mr. Son, put so much on you tonight, but air monitors. We had a talk over a year ago about EPA was going to purchase some more air monitors. Does that happen? No, I mean, that'd be for you though, right? When it works for you, that way it'd be the EPA as well. Because when she asked a good question, well, who's guarding, who's watching what, so the EPA doesn't have any now. She said you bring up good questions, and Mr. Thomas, I paid attention to all you. 45 years ago, yeah. So some things that make it so difficult, that's why Piketon, the village Piketon, had to hire a third-party, assessment to find out fraction bedrock that we were miscommunicated to. So the reason I have a problem as a board member, this is telling DOE, like Mr. Blackburn said, to do their job. We're an advisory board, like, hey DOE, I'm telling you right now, Mr. Bettinger, Mr. Simonton, do your job. Communicate with us. We have to make up this thing? It's ridiculous.
All right, so there's a motion on the floor to proceed with this recommendation. I have a second from us. All right, so it takes 5 votes in favor to pass this recommendation. Board members ask you if you're in favor. Please raise your right hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Opposed? 1. Abstentions? None. All right, so this recommendation passes 6 to 1 to 0. And we appreciate your input and discussion on this. All right, so under...
Got a quick question with that, Greg. How long does this take to get responded to? Because some of these recommendations, they'll take over a year to get back. Because we went through this before with recommendations. They'll take 9 months. There's one never got responded back to, like thank you message. So I'm just kind of curious. Is this going to be a quick one now?
Yes.
Obviously, we write response, we got to review, make sure we're not, you don't want to say something that's wrong, but that presents a problem. So it does take, even the best of circumstances, it takes a little bit of time. It's not a 9-month response.
That's one of my things that get aggravated with is their lag time, how they respond, especially when I heard Mr. Brackner say the PPTO is 6 months behind. That's what it feels like. Thank you, I appreciate you. Thank you.
All right, under tab 5, we have the Educational Workshop Subcommittee. Minutes from the January 14th meeting. Any of the members have anything they want to add to this report? Jody's name was listed first, so I say he's sneaking in the Right, seeing.
Hold on, still reading. Yeah, I'm still reading. A lot of information.
For those in the audience, this is a recap of our, one of the interesting sessions we did with Jeff Bettinger on the environmental monitoring program at the site. Basically how it works and the process, the different kinds of materials that are sampled, and then we took 3 months with various meetings, went through this process, kind of a high-arcing overview, and then more specifically, sample the test and what to look for. So that hopefully when we give a report out to Acer, it reads a little easier, a little more friendly. And if any of the members of the public would like to see that presentation, we can, Julie or Cindy can make that available to you. Email that to you.
Will we put that on our website?
I think it's, I have to see. We can definitely send it up and make that request. All right, under tab 6, you have the environmental monitoring subcommittee from February 11th.
Need to get back and approve 5, or you want to do them all?
You don't need to do it.
Okay, I just want to get there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So under tab 5, Dennis, Jody, term's not here tonight. So Dennis, if there's anything you in particular wanted to add to this, we started the discussion on recommendation 20-02 that led to this point on how we took a look at different ways DOE has communicated with the public in the past and discussed what might be the most efficient way to communicate the rollout of the 2018 ACER, which led to the recommendation you saw tonight.
So the ACER right now is not coming out, because back in was April, so we're thinking what?
April's still the target. We're looking forward to the April.
Just go through our next.
As I understand it. All right, under tab 7, we have the future use subcommittee. Kevin Shoemaker came and gave us kind of a SODI update. Bob Berry has asked me 1,000 times if I have any follow-up to what Kevin's discussed. And
That's a good question.
I don't have any additional things that to be, but every time I get it, I forward that.
I do have a question. When you're getting the minutes back, how do we, because there's a lot more said in this, how do we pick and choose what's going to be in these?
It's not really,
I don't want to say only use the word pick and choose. How do you determine what's going to be?
we just try to get a summary of what was covered at the meeting.
And when they say they, who's they? When they try to decide, would that be you or energy?
That would be Cindy.
Okay.
So it starts with Cindy, she does the
Cindy
first
takes
draft.
it on? Okay.
Yeah, so if you got him mad at me, you can mad at Cindy.
Well, I'm never
No,
mad at
it's
Cindy.
mad at Cindy.
Cindy takes good care of us, I never get
Cindy's
mad.
good. Cindy's good.
Because there's a lot more said than this.
So, again, the purpose of the subcommittee, the purpose of the subcommittee are non-substantial, but it just, if it leads to a recommendation, I think of that nature.
Part of this is no discussion about, Kevin, you still back there? Is it gone? Kevin Shoemaker was here.
That's okay, the discussion, I think it was.
Okay, and I'm just saying, I just want to make sure I didn't say something wrong, but it was in there and we talked about it, was how they're not going to give them access to the SODI spot, the 80 acres, for water and sewer, and these guys had a 120-day turnaround to try to find something when we were all told, so I'm just bringing up the future use here, that this land was so great, we're like a diamond in the rough, you know, the greatest utilities, yay. But now you got the 80 acres, you can't have the water, you can't have our sewer. They got to figure this problem out, and that's what Kevin talked to us about. Kevin said that, it's not, once again, not me, Kevin Shoemaker. Because there's a couple of facilities, and I don't see anything in discussion. I'm trying to find anything about the modular lab.
Again, your summary is not going to capture everything.
Well, I mean, it should capture a modular lab. That's very important because that was discussed. That should be in these minutes. So I do have a problem with that because we talked about a modular lab. Because we did talk about the data mining. We're talking about this, but the modular lab should be in. Because that's what he did talk about, is the modular lab. So where's it at on the front page? Help me out there on the future use.
Your first comment.
Is it right here? When it was agreement right here, calling it 30 acres, maybe at least a
Glad
part.
this gives those modular use.
Okay, where's this at? Help me out there. We're on the back page?
Yeah, first page, it says.
First page should be
Okay. So I'm the one saying modular, but he's the one that brought up modular lab. So it wasn't me that brought it up though. So I don't see Kevin Shoemaker's what I'm trying to say on the side. Because I didn't make up modular lab. That was Kevin that told us about the modular lab. Because that's not his statement, is what I'm trying to say. Yeah, it says me. Yeah, of course I say it, but I'm saying Kevin Shoemaker said I didn't make this up. So, because my comment was like, I would like to see a permanent structure, because I looked over these guys, because they work at modular labs all the time, I like to see a permanent structure is one of my comments back to Kevin.
I can take a look back at the.
Yeah, because I'd like that to be adjusted, because we talked about, Kevin brought the modular lab, not me. That's one of my questions on there.
And I will check.
So that would be nice to be on there.
Yeah, just as a point of record, Cindy's pretty accurate on this most of the time.
Yeah, that's okay, but.
Sometimes things don't fall out the way we.
And this, because this is public record, correct?
This
Public can't get this?
subcommittee, yeah, they can get it, but it's not quote unquote. 6 months.
Well, but here's the deal. I wanted also where Kevin said that they had to have a 120-day turnaround because they're not getting access to water and sewer. That's very important, this future use document. Kevin Shoemaker presented that to us.
Okay.
That's important to me because that's one of my things. If we're going to talk about future use, then DOE says they want to be a partner and want to communicate and stuff. Well, DOE's not communicating with them because he said that. That was so I want that in there. So I appreciate that was talked about.
I will take a look at that and see what's there.
I appreciate it, and I got a copy of this sound too.
The next session is the Outreach and Education Subcommittee from February 11th, where we did an overview of the DOE open houses, and we had a discussion on of the survey data that was taken from attendees for the Zion Corner public meetings. Took a quick review of that, just using it as some baseline information for discussion as we make recommendations to the DOE. Any additional thoughts on that?
So this is the last one?
That's the last one.
This is where we talk about geofencing? Okay. No, I see the geofencing right there. Because we talking about ways to communicate with people and how to target the data. Because one person brought up, I thought, who are you going to send it to? And geofencing is where you can designate the specific areas that people will get information. NPR did a story where they wanted to target Catholic churches, so they popped up the Catholic church address and it went all to people's phones. So we talked about geofencing, it's pretty cool. So just how to get communications out, which led to all this recommendation. Is that correct?
That's it. Slowly trying to fix the property. we ran
Now,
into.
one question, when I ask questions in there, do they get answered like, I asked the question was, how much money are they going to budget and spend on flyers?
Does every question get answered? No.
So it's not public knowledge. So it's public money used from DOE to make flyers, or who, right? That's correct.
Yes.
So then that question should be answered. Do I have to do a FOIA request to get that?
I don't know if there's an answer to that yet.
Okay. Well, I'm just saying, if we're going to have open communication, we're talking about it right now, so that's a question I have. Because we're in a poor community, a bunch of flyers in our mailboxes, like Bloomberg, they're a multi-billionaire, we don't care about a bunch of flyers. We need some infrastructure put into our community.
All right. Why don't we slide forward on the agenda to the public comment portion? Bob, we have 8 folks that have asked to speak tonight. If you split 8 by 15, I feel like we're cutting them short. I have your permission to extend public comment a little bit? Yes, sir. All right, so with that, we're going to give everyone that would like to speak 3 minutes. That way it's fair and equitable and we get a chance to hear what you have to say. This is a comment period. We will not be answering any questions.
Should be 5 at least.
We'll hear what you say and take it and
In place, that's 5 or 10.
go from there, but it's not a dialogue or a Q&A session. We do ask that you keep your comments related to the scope of the board, which is the environmental management project, the project at the site. However, it is an open public comment period. You can speak on whatever you want, as long as it's not a personal attack and you don't say anything illegal or inappropriate. So with that being said, we're going to open the public comment period, and Mr. Tomlinson? You have 3 minutes, sir. The floor is yours.
Okay, first off, I noticed you had the minister when you're taking the stuff down. Is there going to be a minister there when you're dumping the stuff into the place where it's dumped? And I know this is comment, so that's a comment. And another comment, if this company is already under investigation and they've got metals out there that they're taking for refining, what's to stop them from, well, this metal's just a little toxic, why don't we refine it and make money from it too? Those are 2 comments.
Hey, thanks, sir. I appreciate your comments. All right, Ms. Cahill. You nearly got me in trouble earlier, just so you know.
Diana K. Hall. And I'm just a nosy citizen. I've been up here a lot recently. I have a report that I gave out, a few copies out, that talks about the historic putting spent nuclear fuel rods that came out of reactors through the plant. It started in the 1950s, almost as soon as the plant opened, and it continued sporadically off and on until the end of the plant's useful life. They talk about it in campaigns. The first campaign was getting rid of the fuel rods that came out of the Hanford site, where they had nuclear reactors that produced military-grade plutonium for the Department of Defense. Savannah River nuclear reactors. Also, they took their fuel rods and processed them. They also sent some of the nuclear fuel rods from other sites and other DOE endeavors, I guess you'd call them, through Paducah. And that was the second campaign. Over 100,000 metric tons, 100,000, yeah, that's right, over 100,000 metric tons of feed product from Paducah also contained transuranics and technetium, and it went through the Portsmouth plant. There were other campaigns where they took foreign reactor material and ran it through the fuel plant, through the feed plant. So this has gone on for a very long time. In 1978, President Carter stopped it because of proliferation issues, and it started back up in 96, 97, and 98, which means that that material was in X326 when they took it down, because until a process change out happened, that contaminated material was still in the equipment. I found in the World Nuclear Association,
About 30 seconds, okay?
okay, 2002 to 2006, also, they ran it through USEC. The statement was USEC cleaned 7,400 metric tons of contaminated material for the DOE. So it went on for a very long time. It's no wonder they're finding transuranics. It's kind of a wonder they didn't find more.
Oh, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. And I have some of those reports for anyone who wants one. You type in the title, it just pulls it up. You can see everything.
If you could help me get a hold of those, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah.
All right. Lee, you're next, sir.
Lee Blackburn, former board member. This is the reason why I have real concerns about the piping in the buildings being cut up and dumped into the on-site waste disposal facility. But that's not what I asked to talk. Last June, there was a draft recommendation, 1903, which was a request regarding existing landfills and plumes outside Perimeter Road being dug up and consolidated. That recommendation was tabled, and I would ask Bob and Carlton to bring it back to the board for further consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. Ms. Colley? Heidi back in the corner.
I'm very disappointed in your public participation. You don't notify any of us about any of the meetings anymore. I mean, we have emails and no one notifies us about the meetings. And I'm really concerned about you guys wanting the EPA to lower the limits on the discharges of the 3 pipes that we already have that's going into the Schneider River that goes to the Ohio River. And now you want to add a 4th pipe. And in these pipes, the water's coming from the D&D, from the waste cell, from the DUS6. All of this is going to go into an already affected Schneider River that goes into the Ohio River. Now, we know, and I know, you know, that we're not surprised about the transuranics because I've been doing this for like 35, 36 plus years, and I have brought it up at many, many meetings, including the fractured bedrock. I was the first one who ever talked about the fractured bedrock. And you never gave me any answers, you never said anything, and now we have an air monitor all the way 14 miles from this plant, and not one word about, oh, we might look into that tomorrow. Maybe we'll talk to these school kids and these teachers out there. You know, I have family members in one of these schools that air monitor and all this transuranics has went. And not only do we have a problem with the americium, the biggest problem here is the technetium-99 because it's water soluble. It has spread everywhere. It's off-site, it's on-site, it's everywhere. Now we have a huge problem, and we can't talk about restoration and more industry out here until we come clean and tell us what's out there, and we come clean and we clean up this site, which we know we can't clean it up. And this is high-level waste that we have. They need to look at our waste and reclassify our waste. It is not low-level waste. It's high-level. Plutonium, neptunium, americia, strontium, you name it, we have it at this site, and we need to do something about it. We can't put industry out here until we clean this site up. We tell the community the truth, and we do something about these air monitors 14 miles from this plant that's already contaminated this area for years and years. And I'm sure all the dust that they stirred up building that waste cell, we told them on that 360 acres, Marvin Rezikoff and I, in 2005, I think it was, we told them that you had plutonium in that dust, in that dirt, and you couldn't do anything with that property. But what they do, they stirred it all up to put 12, not one waste cell, but 12 waste cells out here. So I'm really, really concerned, and I'm upset, and I'm tired of not getting notifications about the meeting. We're the only environmental group that's been here for 36 plus years, and we don't get any notices whatsoever.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Colley. Glad you're here tonight. All right, Ms. Joni, we're back to you, ma'am.
Thank you. Joni Fearing, Portsmouth, Ohio. I was hesitant to come tonight for several reasons. One, I don't need any more exposures. They just found a nodule on my thyroid, and I'm terrified. And two, I don't think it means much to you all. We come here, we speak. You have to let us speak. It's part of the process. You have to allow public comments. You have to have the SSAB. And I'm very grateful to all of you who are spending your time and efforts, but it's always flipped. You know, it's always tilted toward the DOE. I applied for this board a long time ago and I got rejected, no wonder. But you're always, you know, making the votes go your way. You just set it up that way. So does this mean anything? Well, I thought about the pebble in the pond. You throw a pebble in a pond, the ripples go out, you never know where that's going to touch somebody's life. You should be covering these. The other thing is about this, which I couldn't believe, the pictures. You need to cover these buildings, and I don't know all the language, I'm just learning that. Cover them completely and do where it creates a vacuum so that dust doesn't fly. So that Dawn, the dishwasher soap, oh my God, yeah, they clean the ducts with it, but they're not talking about tons and tons and tons of radioactive material dust. they're not covered with that. Yes, they're covered with something that will kill them, but this will kill us. And I came tonight so you would remember our voices and our faces, because some of us won't live to enjoy the rest of our lives. My dad got 2 good years of retirement before he was diagnosed with cancer, and he loved retirement. He was traveling, golfing, he got into photography, he loved music. He was living his life after working for all that time, and he got sick and he died. So I came partly to be a voice, and I never know, thank God the media comes, I never know. I ran for state representative for District 90, which is not this district, but it's Scioto and Adams and part of Lawrence. And Scioto and Adams have provided most of 40, 60, I don't know, I forget the numbers, but a percent of the workforce up here. So that's, you know, we're connected. We're connected. And I get into the papers a lot because now, before I was speaking up, and I did, and I took my sign to the John McCain rally, and I was interviewed by an AP reporter because John McCain picked me for his first question. I was stunned. They gave me the microphone, and I was, believe it or not, I was tongue-tied because I didn't think anybody would pay attention. And I got interviewed by an AP reporter, and you know how far that article went? Around the world. I found it in the Irish Times, Ireland, about John McCain wanting to build 45 more nuclear plants. So I never know where my voice will go. None of us do. All of us are here, pebbles in the pond. But we don't want it in a nuclear pond. We don't want it in contaminated water anymore. We should have done a Superfund site, but they weren't drinking the contaminated water on the site. We had the numbers, but not the water issue. It was right off the site where people and cows were dying. So think of the children in the school, and the teachers, and the parents. Think of them. Think of when they get sick, and I know the EPA can't tell you, any of us, anything they're not allowed to say. The government controls that too. Who's protecting us?
Ms. Freeman, I need you to...
I know you do. I know you do. And I appreciate the extension of time.
Thank you, ma'am. Oh, it's Matt Bruce. Couldn't read your handwriting for a second. I saw the pen. I was like,
Yeah, that's a common problem I have. Sorry.
Sorry about that.
I bet it's better than mine.
That's my call. I'm Bruce, Health Commissioner, Pike County Health Department. Is anybody really naive enough to think that the misters and the foggers are going to prevent all the radioactive dust we're going to have? If you are, please raise your hand. The misters and foggers that work in other places are not going to work here. It's really that simple. So something else has to be figured out for open air demolition. It does not work. We have to see the air modeling data. And Dennis, we've asked numerous times, we haven't seen it. When it's available, we'll be one of the first ones. After you get it, maybe we'll get ours, a copy of that. And back to the open air demolition, we're in an area where our buffer's feet. It's not miles. This isn't Hanford where if something leaves the site, there's a buffer there to protect people. We don't have that. That's nobody's fault other than the selection of this spot for the facility, but we have to deal with, it is what it is. Next question or comments, correct DASA reports. Are those corrected? When will those be available? Because I haven't seen those. Lastly, we need DOE to honestly share the WAC, the waste acceptance criteria, and allow us to know what's actually going to go in the ground. It's been long enough. The community needs to know. I get questions all the time. I get things from sent to me, and sometimes I don't know what to do with them. But there's a lot of people that are against the waste cell. It might be fine to put in the concrete, the blocks of concrete, the blacktop, all the stuff that could be considered clean fill. But anything that's been used in the process, the process gas, I'm stumbling over myself, but you know what I'm getting at. Ship that out west, put the stuff we can in the disposal cell, and put the bad stuff. We've been doing it for years. There's been thousands of shipments out there. There hasn't been a problem with, we probably wouldn't know if there was, but that I know of. But anyways, so I'm starting to ramble, so I'll end with that. And then as far as The independent assessment, I'll be giving an update. Eastern schools will be included in the independent assessment, and we'll give an update on that. We've been working on it since literally May, and it's a long process. There's nothing quick or easy about any of this.
Thanks, Matt. And again, I apologize for stumbling over your name. All right, Ms. Pat, you're next up. But before we go to you, a couple things. One, Ms. Pat has submitted a written comment that you guys have a copy of. It's this fact sheet from the Sierra Club. So we told her we would provide that to you so she didn't have to read that into the record and eat up her time. The other piece is we did the same thing with her last month. So the copy of the fact sheet should have been at the behind the minutes in your packet, and it wasn't. That's on me. But it will be attached to the minutes when they go online electronically, and then become part of the formal record. So I wanted everyone to know that I made a mistake and I'm correcting it. Cindy's going to get that fixed. So anyway, she has the written comment that you have to understand.
Okay, thank you, Eric. And if you see this electronically, everything that's underlined, there's links, hyperlinks, and to back up the information that's said here, and also there's further information. And so you should be getting some of that, that's good, electronically. So, in January 2020, the DOE announced that we amended the record of decision for the conversion facility, and then to have a new process that would make depleted uranium hexafluoride for use in warfare. So there's little civilian use for depleted uranium, but it is used as protective armor in tanks and armor-piercing shells and bunker-buster bombs. So using depleted uranium for weapons and armoring of vehicles is controversial because of its implications of environmental sustainability, public health, troop health, and international law. So thousands of tons of depleted uranium have been detonated in the former Yugoslavia, in Iraq and in Iran, in Iraq and Afghanistan. And serious health risks occur, and these are delineated in many places on the internet. When it's ingested, when ionizing radiation is ingested or inhaled by people in war zones, and also through wounds and in test areas. And if you look here, you can see that the former Jefferson Proving Ground in Indiana, where they tested this, the Army claims it's too dangerous to even clean that up. So DOE promised that if they had a new system, anything new would be made here, that they would do a supplemental environmental impact statement, but they are not planning to do this. So lawyer Terry Modge in Toledo has written a 16-page letter to the DOE stating objections to the amended record of decision and pleading for a supplemental environmental impact statement and demanding, if you will, pleading is a legal word, for this environmental impact statement that was promised by the DOE. And some of the things they must quantify would be, what are the effects of civilian and soldier victims of depleted uranium exposure? And what are the future costs of decontamination of war areas and of medical treatment for victims and costs of remediating infrastructure and the danger of when they take this out and they make that munitions, those workers and the transport workers, they're all going to be exposed to ionizing radiation. So I'm not a nuclear physicist, I'm not a nuclear engineer, but I am a scientist, I have a science background, I'm a pharmacist, and I understand the biological effects of radioactivity, and they're not good, they're not good at all. So if you read on here, we go into things about what this can cause, lung cancers, but besides that, there's just kidney damage and just damage to the general health, heart damage and so forth. And they take time. So
about 10 seconds.
Okay, so there's birth defects in Iraq, and you can read about that. So there's the Gulf War syndrome. The United States Army tried to deny, the military tried to deny the veterans health care, deny that this was caused by the depleted uranium. So I guess I'll just close with that and say that our conclusion is that the record decision must be amended, and the Department of Energy must do an environmental impact statement, a supplemental environmental impact statement before they go ahead and allow this to happen right here at Piketon.
And it's not about radioactive.
Hey, just as a reminder, Ms. Pat Reinhardt-Kner, who's the project manager for the Texas project. So, please, that's the plan.
April 22nd, the Ohio EPA will hold a public hearing on the MPDES permit at the Piketon High School, and they will ask for public comment and explain the project and hopefully provide answers to questions if you have them. I didn't get that in my 3 minutes, sorry.
We'll forgive you.
How much have they found at Piketon High School? Have they tested that school too? Do we get masks and hazmat suits to go in?
Is that meeting about the pipes, the discharges, is that meeting about the discharges?
Yes, that will be the new collection system that they're looking at.
All right, let's go to Dr. Menuda, you next.
Two quick comments for Mr. Banger. You had mentioned about the nickel. Now, we use nickel as a material in construction because of its relative awareness to fluorinated gases, including UF6. So before it can go outside, it's got to be contaminated, whether it came out of a building in the 3 building complex or whether it came out of one of the process buildings. And so I would, if that has not been a consideration, I would suggest that it be a consideration. Second comment on that deals with the coolant that you had identified. Our product coolant was Freon 114, so 114 turns out to be a gas, where R11 turns out to be a liquid, and it would actually be used in commercial refrigeration. And so it would have been a plant site in the cafeteria. And so I think there's an error on the slides that indicated the type of coolant. And I think that that would need to be corrected before it goes out to a wider audience than this. Then I want to direct some comments about the radioactive elements. I want to make it very clear that this is something that we teach the freshmen. Uranium is element number 92. Everything higher in atomic number than 92 is not natural. So you can't go to a mine and extract it out of the ground. Okay, 93 is neptunium, 94 is plutonium, 95 is americium. Okay, the key issue is those are transuranics because they're heavier than uranium is. Now, when technetium was mentioned, that's a fission product. Okay, it's element number 43, and it's typical, similar, in this case, to iodine, which is element 53, and cesium, which is element 55. Those are all fission products, which means that the uranium atom has already been split into 2 smaller pieces. And I want to direct that because there's a huge difference between a fission product and a transuranic element. And Mr. Schneider, with respect to you, I don't know what your background is, I haven't met you, but normally in a situation that arose in discussion, I'm going to give you advice from an unsolicited source because I testify in court, and that is if you don't know, say you don't know. Okay, because if I'm not here in the audience, the likelihood is no one else would have caught that. And you don't want a comment that is... Okay, thank you. Okay, so I'll leave it with one quick point. The americium and the plutonium and the neptunium are not part of what we did here. The likelihood is they were in material that was brought back from either Hanford, Savannah River, or any of the other federal sites where there was a reactor on site. So just something for DOE to think about. Closing comment would be not only do air sampling, but do soil sampling. And what you want to do is a comparison between what we know is fallout and then whatever we're finding at this location. Because it's that comparison that needs to be communicated to the public.
Thank you, sir. All right. Final comments from the board.
Yeah, I said.
Yeah.
No one else does.
Short and sweet, sir.
Oh, no.
Yep.
I'm trying to talk.
No, but you don't get a bullet full thing, so.
No, it's not. I'm just wanting to share with the board. It's not a bullet point. I didn't say anything for it. I'm trying to share with you that the Village of Pike passed a resolution. It's the same resolution that we passed here. And they passed it unanimous. They like the resolution. Eric, and this is not a bullet point. This would upset me, Eric. I'm sorry. I'm just a little emotional right now. I'm just sorry. I'm not being a bullet pulpit. That was the wrong thing for you to say.
I apologize.
Thank you. I appreciate that because one thing is I'm not a bully. I'm a person that loves my community, Eric. So please don't ever do that to me again. That was just rude because I don't do that to you. I respect you. You do a great job. Thank you. The Village of Pike passed a resolution. I sent it to Julie on the email, and I want to get a copy of that to everybody, that we passed a resolution. We can pull it up. It just take me a second, won't be long. Our time is valuable, but it's an important resolution because of some of these pathways forward and communication, Eric, this is just communication, is the resolution is saying, the one we wrote was about a robotics lab that we all unanimously passed, a regional STEM school for the children, and a worker development center. So the Village of Piketon says, SSAB, that was a great resolution, because there's resolutions I have voted for, and that was one of them that every single person on this board voted for, is unanimous. So I will share that with the board and the community if you want a copy of it. That was passed, so that's definitely not a bully, that's actually saying high five to the board, so thank you. And also, I want to go into the record, I also sent this to Julie and Cindy to share with the board. There's a national story done by the National Education Association, which is the largest union in the United States of America with over 3.1 million members, which I'm a proud member of, and a community member that pays my taxes in this community. And don't complain about paying my taxes because I want to support my community. That's not a bully. That's a person that loves your community. I invest here, I live here, I own a home here. I'm sorry, Eric, that you don't own one here, but I do, and there's some good people that own homes, so that's not what I consider a bully. So I want to share with the people here, and I will make it for the people, and I asked Mr. Lucas if I can share that with you. This is a national publication. Mr. Brewster was interviewed for it. There was a few other people in that, and they did their own story. I don't tell them what to write, and they went out and they picked up data and information about this. It's a pretty open-minded story, and I highly recommend you read it. That's called respect for my community, and I deserve the same respect, and these people, this place, they deserve the same respect. I mean, these people brought up good questions about misters and stuff. I'm listening to these people. When you leave to go back to where you live, these people ask some good questions. Where's it going to go? I want to know. A lot of my friends around here that are getting older, they want to leave. Eric, that's not fair. And I heard something tonight that I didn't even think about. The corrected ACER. When you're wrong, correct it. Did they collect those and pass out new ones? How are they going to do that? So that's not a bully. This is just information from a man that's getting a lot of time with you guys, that asked me for $3 for pizza when I come here to eat. So I'm just telling you, this is my gas and my time. It's important. It's valuable. I'm spending time away from my 83-year-old father I have to take care of to be here with you. And I don't care if you have to sit an extra minute. This is my town, my community. We're talking about something that's going to last 1,000 years. I appreciate your time. I'm done.
Thank you, sir. Comments? Yes.
It's just a question that I don't think you'll have an answer for tonight, but maybe at a future meeting. I'm aware of the assistance to the community schools infrastructure, that's done at other sites. Oak Ridge, Lake Mountain, Savannah River, Los Alamos. My question is, why is there not the same type of support regarding this site? And it just seems like there are other sites that are really taken care of, and with ours, it's really nothing that I know of that's being for assistance. So, just a question. Maybe the next meeting we can have a little discussion about that. And the level of assistance that's done at some of these other places it really starts to make you kind of scratch your head and say, wait a minute, what's wrong with us? I guess, I mean, if I were to make it real brief, it's why not us?
Sure.
Okay.
That's a property to take back. Go. Make sure. Thank you, John. Are there other questions from the board? Comments. All right, and again, Dennis, as a board choice award, I'm sorry, we're forgetting. I should not have said that.
Sorry, I'm still just.
I apologize.
Thank you.
All right. That being said,
Thank you all for coming.
Ms. Steele, come off.
I'm staying.
All right. Perfect.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for being here, ma'am.
Executive summary.